Hello, hello. If you've gotten to this recording, then you've gotten to part 2 of the Dead Fandom Files, Hetalia. The following recording will host Fangames, Fanfiction, as well as the fandom at large. Note of warning, some of these things in this recording may be too disturbing for those more sensitive. Take precautions and skip this video if you are sensitive to the following things. Fan-made games. One of the more popular games that I constantly see and I teased in the last recording was Heta Oni. Heta Oni is loosely based on the original game Oni. Heta Oni was created in 2010 by user Tomoyoshi to Nico Nico. It was originally Japanese only, but was later translated by fans and then updated with a patch to include other languages. What's nice about this game is that despite being based on another game, it does have an original plot that is completely different from that game. It stars both the Axis and Allied nations, along with a few others such as Spain, South Italy, and Prussia, and a few more minor characters. The plot for the game is as follows. Italy hears about a haunted house and convinces the others to check it out, only to be trapped inside and hunted down one by a strange monster who appears to look quite similar to Tony, America's alien friend. Now, if you don't want too many spoilers, I suggest skipping now. Now, what the other nations don't know is that all of this has happened before, as they are in a time loop created by Italy as a chance for all of them to live through this, as time and time again, one or all have died in past time loops. This game creates a very good emotional breakdown of what is usually a very happy and go-lucky character, Italy, and his very infamous scenes within. But despite all the good, there is some bad, like character profile sprites, with the fact that it will probably always be unfinished. Some say it's due to rule breaking that caused the creator to put in jump scares to prevent it, thus facing backlash by fans. Others say it's because of the original creator lost the files and didn't want to have to make the game all over again. Either way, the game has gone on hiatus since 2011 and will probably remain that way. Dream Talia. Created by Kyokun64 and Piano Dream, this game was finished in March 16th of 2018, surprisingly, and is very intricate if I do say so. The game follows with Italy's mind being plagued and possessed by a demon, and both Axis and allies, as well as a few other characters, have to enter his mind to exorcise it, while trying to resist the pull of the demon themselves, who tries to possess them as well. There's a lot of tarot references in this game, as well as alternate nations influenced by the antagonist of the game as well. It is made in RPG Maker, and the game is an interesting indeed. And also, the creators have a YouTube channel showing the game and how it works. Go check it out. Finally, the last game is probably the more popular game. RomaHeta. RomaHeta, a fan game, was a fan game that became so popular amongst the fandom that it was discontinued supposedly because the creator didn't like the fan art of the game becoming more popular than the fan art of the original series. Though rumors that Kia Lao is actually trying to finish the game makes one wonder whether or not that's true. The game revolves around Japan making a new video game with an accidental sentient error in its code that traps the characters in the game and slowly infects them with the error, giving them powers and the ability to infect others. The plot is, for lack of a better word, complicated. There are characters who are on your side and switch sides, betrayal, character 180s, and lots of drama and angst. Definitely one to check out. Fanfiction. Can't talk about fanfiction without Vera Verse. Vera Verse is a collection of fanfiction written by George deValier in a human alternate universe of the characters during the setting of World War II. The series begins with We'll Meet Again, starring Alfred and Arthur in London as a pub owner and Alfred as an American fighter pilot, falling in love with time counting down until they part, with the sequel Keep Smiling Through, where Alfred shows Arthur what it's like to fly. Following that, we have Auf Wunderschön, Sweetheart, starring Feliciano and Ludwig, where Feliciano is an Italian resistance member falling in love with a German fighter pilot, Ludwig. I guess this is a perfect time to go and say the series goes out of its way to make sure that you know both Ludwig and Gilbert do not align themselves with the Nazis, despite being in and serving in the German army. The romance they have end up truly testing whose loyalties lie to as well. The Verse has 2 more finished fics called Lily of the Lamplight, starring Gilbert and Rodrich, both being a part of a German prison army unit headed straight to Russia to fight on the front lines, and Besame Mucho, starring Lovino and Antonio, similar in the veins of Auf Wunderschön, Sweetheart, with Lovino still residing in the village that Feliciano, his brother, did, falling for a Spanish freedom fighter. George has stated that he still has a few more stories to add to the series, named Something to Remember You By, as well as Echo and Jealousy, which he is working on remastering and is currently taken down. George's last updated fic was on February 20th of 2013, so whether that remains to be true, well, time will tell. Next, we start getting on to the more creepy fanfics. These next couple fanfics are the reason I put the warning up. So if you're sensitive to these things but still followed through till now, I recommend skipping. The next one is Gutters. Gutters is an angst and tragic story about Sealand and Denmark trying to survive a post-apocalyptic landscape caused by the calamity as they desperately try to get back to their families. It doesn't work out for the best, to put it lightly. Written by glassamilk, it's not really hard to see why many comics and even animations were made for this story. It doesn't have a happy ending, so I'd recommend having a tissue box if you want to read this 20-chapter story. Danish Slaughterhouse. Boy oh boy, this story right here. Big skip if you do not like gore and things like that. It was written by Intraslu in 2012. If you enjoyed Denmark being the good guy in the last entry, you will find no such comfort here. I'm not going to beat around the bush, this is a horror story. As such, it has elements such as murder, dismemberment, blood, gore, and rape. It's not for the faint of heart, for you little Hetalians. And it's safe to say, no one wants to survive ends up surviving like you would want them to. Escape the mansion. You're free to leave. But honey, no one escapes. Every Nordic becomes one with Denmark, eventually. Finally, we get to Hetalia episode 23.5. Every popular series is bound to have a lost episode creepypasta, or several. 23.5 is a lost media creepypasta posted by Kyokyo866 with an unofficial sequel regret by the same author. This is one of the more infamous creepypasta lost episodes of Hetalia, and what makes this story infamous is due to the pictures included in the creepypasta that are honestly so well edited, it's no wonder young teens and tweens alike thought it was actually a real episode. The story follows the protagonist buying a bootleg DVD of Hetalia and watching it after their sister no longer wanted to do anything Hetalia after watching the DVD. A hidden episode? Well, what could possibly go wrong? Moving on from fanfic, we get to something called the Parallel Nations. The Parallel Nations are an alternative version of the nations and characters we see in the series. They can vary from personality to color swaps, and the main versions are the 2Ps. There are also the elusive 3 and 4Ps, as well as the Neo Italia. 2Ps are a palette and personality swapped versions of the nations are now loosely based on the palette swapped versions of Italy, Japan, and Germany created by the actual creator of the series himself. He also said something along the lines of, they look very much a part of an evil organization, of which fans ran like wildfire to mean edgy and dark. Of course, not all 2Ps are evil, murderous psychos. In fact, many accepted canon for these characters make them not, well, murderous psychos. They are simply color and personality swapped nations, and that's that. An example would be France and 2P France. One who is obsessed with love and may seem like a perv, but is very sensitive and loves very deeply, and seems to quite enjoy attention. While 2P is a man who hates romance and love, routinely smokes and drinks, and generally would like to be as far away from people as possible. 3Ps and 4Ps are a bit tricky, as there isn't much consensus on their personalities or how they look. It seems that the farther you get away from canon, the more of these parallel nations start to look more like OCs rather than parallel nations. 3Ps are, from what I found, a more punk version of the nations, while 4Ps are nations that are depressed. It's very confusing. As for the Neo-Italia, well, those are simply female versions of the characters, or a gender bend. They were actually featured in an episode of Beautiful World Hetalia. The fandom at large. This fandom is one that is notorious for its crazy behavior, as one bad apple will thoroughly spoil the whole bunch, as not everyone from this fandom are crazy weebs and pervs. Oh my. That being said, I am going to go over a moment in the fandom that truly colored and continues to color it in a negative light. Anime Boston, 2010. For those who know what those words mean, you probably are already cringing and know what I'm going to say. But for those who don't, allow me to tell you the tale. The tale forever known as the Hetalia incident. It's 2010, Anime Boston. The day is still up for debate of whether or not this happened on a Friday or a Saturday, but the con was booked. And where the Hetalia group wanted to take their photo shoot was much too small for a large gathering. This is when the fandom was really starting to take flight, so I'm not surprised that the original spot was too small. Doesn't help that it was closed as well. Somehow or another, they choose a different location outside, and just 1 block away from a certain memorial. Looking on the forums, I came across someone who was amongst the Prussias, Germanys, and Austrias who were a part of this incident. They say they don't know who truly started the action, but that once one did, so did the rest. They sig-heiled as a pose for the photo shoot outside of the Prudential building during Passover, a couple miles from the Holocaust Memorial. It is this incident that will forever be cemented in the fandom. It was talked about in news articles until this day still gets brought up. One of the girls did apologize after the incident, but the damage was done. The pictures are on the web, and people began distancing themselves from the fandom, embarrassed to even say they were a part of it. Now, you might be thinking, that's probably the worst thing that this fandom has to offer. And you're right. It probably is. But for the show, however, there is one thing. One thing that is worse. Now, many of you know how Hetalia is banned in certain countries, how John Tatum stated how he was afraid to go to France after he voiced over France in the series. But to finish this all off, I'm going to talk about one more subject that I don't see talked about often in this fandom. It's a topic of England's redubbing by Funimation. Now, if you were in the fandom from the beginning, you'll notice that England's dubbed lines in English sound different now than how they were originally, as if the voice actors were completely changed. And you'd be right, as his current VA is Talia Sinjaf. I probably butchered that, but that was not always the case. Now you could be wondering why Funimation would go through the trouble of redubbing a series with a new VA. I mean, wouldn't that cost too much time and money? Or maybe because the original voice actor was arrested for something truly heinous and they wanted to distance themselves from it. Scott Freeman was the original England's voice actor both for the original series as well as the movie. And on April 5th of 2015, Scott was arrested on 8 counts of CP. He was only convicted for a total of 3 years in jail on July 30th of 2015. Since then, Funimation terminated all contracts with him and as such casted all characters by him to other VAs and redubbed most of his roles, pretty much scrubbing him from their brand. I guess that goes to show that those in the production of your favorite series might not have your best interests at heart. I don't really want to leave this on such a somber or disgusting note, as the fandom does have its good parts and people, and the same can be said here. So continue waving the white flag, drinking from your boots, and marvel at the beautiful world. This is VB, signing off.